and welcome to the 2021 JA Virtual Conference, and thank you for joining us. Just a few housekeeping before we begin. This section is being recorded. All participants have been muted. We will save questions until the end of the presentations, but feel free to type your questions in the chat. Hello, my name is Faith Louise Cooper, and I am a JA Young Adult, and I'll be one of your session hosts for today's session. It's my privilege to welcome our moderator and panel speakers for today's session. Our moderator, Emma Borgen, hopefully, is also a conference co-chair for the Young Adult program. Since this is a panel section, I will pass it over to Emma to introduce herself and then allow the panelists to provide their introductions for today. Over to you, Emma.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma Bjornson. That is totally all right on the last name. There's no worries. I am serving as the moderator for today's session. It is my pleasure. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. I just wanted to remind you all to please take a moment at the end of this session to complete the conference survey in the app. This will help us guide programming in the future. And also for your questions today, if you could please enter those in the chat and direct them towards myself, Emma, that would be awesome. So I'm able to easily moderate this session. So to get us started, why don't we go ahead and get some introductions from our two panelists. Haley, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Hey guys, my name's Haley Mapp. I'm 18. I am a junior at Georgia Southern, and I'm gonna go ahead and apologize if it gets super loud because we have recruitment practice going on at AOPI right now, and all the houses down row have recruitment practice going on. So it might get a little bit loud on my end. But other than that, I was diagnosed with SJIA at the age of 9. And then this will be like, I think my family's 9th year for conference.
All right, Shane, you can take it away.
So my name's Shane. I was diagnosed at the age of 10 with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, polyarticular. I'm in Petaluma, California, just about 30 miles north of San Francisco, and I will be moving in 5 days to Chico State to continue out my college education. This is now our 12th conference, so in 10th year going to the conferences. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, both of you. So to start off with, let's go ahead and talk about school. This can be both primary and secondary, but college will be a separate topic. So a question for school: how were you able to advocate for yourself when you were younger amongst your peers? If either one of you want to take that question.
I know that the way that I handled it a lot of the times was, when it was in elementary school and, stuff like that, I would actually make a presentation and then go and talk with do a presentation in front of my class if need be. But in high school, I just kind of, if people asked where I was, I would answer them and just kind of let them know. If they wanted to know more, usually they could ask me. But usually most people didn't really want to know anymore. Kind of said okay, and then went about their way and didn't really bother them all that much. People that wanted to know more, I'd sit and talk with them if I felt, and this kind of sounds bad, but if I thought they were deserving of it. I would tell them, and I say deserving because there's some people out there that just don't, that they're doing make fun of you or kind of get a rise out of you, and I just don't feel like people yeah, it's hard to say this, but those people don't really deserve your time to sit there and actually know about your story. So you can just kind of say, well, you can look it up, and if you have any more questions and want to be real with me, then come back to me. And that's usually what I would do.
My situation was a little bit different because my parents pulled me out of school and homeschooled me after I got diagnosed because our truancy policies in our county and in Georgia were just very messed up at the time. So my parents pulled me out, but I had to do a lot of advocating for myself in extracurriculars. So like with sports, I had to tell my coaches and communicate with them on like, hey, sometimes I need an extra break, or I can't do this specific drill because it hurts this joint. And I had to like learn at a young age to stand up for myself and advocate. And I, even at a young age, like you don't want to stand out, especially like you don't want to be the weird kid on the sports team or the weird kid in class. But it is very important to know your limit and know when you do need to step up and like, hey, I do have this problem and like I need to address this.
Awesome. Thank you for those answers. While you were in school, did you find it challenging to relate to your peers, and what ways did you overcome that?
For me, it was definitely challenging to kind of, a lot of people would play baseball or go out and do other stuff. But I found it in my early years, junior or freshman and sophomore year of high school. I was a big part of the culinary team, and that was just kind of what I was a part of, and that was a big thing for me. And in my junior and senior year, I went into doing the fish hatchery stuff. Granted, my junior and senior year, I was doing a lot better. My medication time I was under control. I was able to do more with my classmates and not have to worry about saying, well, I need to take a break and that type of stuff. But for my freshman and sophomore year, it definitely was challenging, when I wasn't there, and then my classmates would, wonder why and, make comments and stuff. And it definitely, you have to deal with on a case by case basis. But in more often than not, they were understanding, and well, I have the flu, but it took me a week longer than most people to get over it. And it's just kind of like you just got to put in the effort to kind of make it so that it's not just kind of this odd thing that you got to deal with. But I never ran into anybody that I would occasionally have a bully or somebody that wanted to pick on me for it, but never really felt like I stood out in that club, but I definitely, if I wanted to do sports or something, I think I definitely would have had a different experience.
As like a whole, I felt like hard to relate to my peers growing up, especially when I was younger, because I had to say no to a lot. Like, oh, I got my infusion today, so I need to say no to that sleepover tonight. But as I got older, like I was very particular with the people that I surrounded myself with. So I didn't feel so left out because I surrounded myself with those understanding people that really did care about me and understood my limits.
Awesome. Thank you. This kind of ties into the previous two questions, but when you were younger, how did you explain your condition to your friends? What verbiage did you use?
I mean, I still use it to this day, but if people really don't understand what arthritis is, I kind of say, well, it's kind of like, when you wear out your joints, but for me, it's the opposite. It fights against, my joints, my immune system fight against my joints. And then, it's kind of, I get inflammation in the joints, and usually we'll get it nowadays. But I think as a kid, it definitely was kind of, it was easier to say, well, oh, well, my, what your grandma and grandpa gets, well, I have that, but, instead of worn out joints, I have inflamed joints with, fluid. instead of worn out, which was the easiest way. And nowadays is not the best way to describe it, but I think when you're younger and you're just trying to get something that younger people can understand, that definitely cements in their mind. People think of their mom or grandpa or even their parents having it like that.
I've used very similar wording. I feel like my whole life I try and keep it as simple as possible and then expand on it if they have more questions or don't understand. So simple things like, well, my arthritis makes my joints hurt. But like, even when you're younger, like some kids don't even know what a joint is. So you have to be like your knees, like your ankles, the parts of your body that move hurt. And then I had a little bit of a harder time explaining it because I do have that systemic aspect where it's like, so arthritis affects your joints, but I have a specific kind that also affects my cells and my organs and my muscles. And so I just try and keep it as simple as possible. And then if they have more questions, expand on those.
Great, thank you. When you were in school, in what ways did your parents advocate for you?
I think that definitely when I was a lot younger, in elementary school, my mom would come in, and if I did do a presentation, she'd be there with me to answer questions that I might not be able to answer, and kind of help me along with it. But I think that, it was definitely for my parents, it was trying to come and it wasn't even advocating, but trying to be there to, get me from school when I couldn't make it through the day. And, just trying to encourage me the next day to be there. And, if people ask why I had to leave, were encouraging me to say, well, the real reason why, not to say that I was sick or, something like that, because people then would not want to get sick and not want to be around me.
My parents were definitely my biggest advocates until I learned how to be my own advocate, because they were the best examples of it's not bad to tell somebody you need to take a break. It's not bad to tell people that you do have this condition. Like, people in your mind, you think people are going to judge you, and that when in reality, they're going to be more compassionate when they do know that you have something wrong with you and you're not just being lazy and want to sit out. And so my parents definitely were my biggest advocates until I learned how to. And they also helped me know where my limits were. Like, when I wanted to push those limits, they reminded me, hey, you're not going to feel so great tomorrow if you push those limits to try and keep up with everyone else.
Great, thank you. This is just a reminder for our friends who are watching. You can ask a question at any time. You can go ahead and direct it towards myself, and it will remain anonymous. And excuse if you hear any noise in the background. I guess they are just starting construction during this session. All right, we are going to go ahead and move on to more college-related questions. How do you get accommodations, or did you need them?
For me, it was when I was at the JC here in my area. It was getting in touch with the on-campus disabilities resource department, and then each college has their own version of it. So now that I'm at a 4-year college, I think it's the accessibility resource department. That I didn't want to call it disability, so it's accessibility. And just getting in touch with the person and seeing what I needed. So whether you had I can't remember. I had an IEP and I can't remember what the other name is. But whether or not you had one of those, or just trying to prove that you have the disability, so a doctor's note or something like that, was one of the main things they wanted. And then in my state, I have. It's called the Department of Rehabilitation. So I had to go in and prove that I had arthritis to them with a doctor's note and medical evidence. And now I don't pay for my college and I don't pay for books or anything. So I went there and discussed with the person there. And my teachers really helped me all through high school with that. But just trying to get started because that was and still is a huge resource for me that that I use daily just because I couldn't afford to go to a 4-year college if it wasn't them.
I've been to, this is my second college at Georgia Southern now, but both colleges have been very accommodating with everything that I need. So we have a student accessibility resource center down here, and that's where they did everything revolved around my classes. And so I had a packet of paper that I got from the resource center, and my doctor filled it out with accommodations that I might possibly need, because we have multiple classes down here where we're not allowed to have our laptops out. And some days I just can't handwrite notes. So they give you the option to either type your notes and have your laptop out, or they'll assign someone to like take notes for you. And then I also received housing accommodations last year where I got to choose the apartment I wanted on campus first. And so I had my own bedroom and bathroom. And then the school provided me with a mini fridge for my medications. And then I also had a first floor apartment, so I didn't have to walk up 3 flights of stairs every day. And so that was very nice. And they were both extremely easy to work with.
Awesome. Thank you. What were some considerations that you had when looking at campuses in regards to your conditions?
Haley, take this one first.
Okay, I've got you. So my options were limited to begin with because of my chosen major. So I only had the option of UGA and Georgia Southern in the state of Georgia. And if anyone has ever been to Athens, it is not a flat campus. It is very spread out, lots of hills. And Georgia Southern is somewhat spread apart, but it's very close together, very nice, very flat. And lucky for me, I didn't feel at home in Athens. I felt much more at home in Statesboro. So it was an easy choice to choose my campus, and it just reflected a better living situation for me and my arthritis.
I definitely didn't really have a whole lot of choices myself for colleges, especially with my degree as well. So I only really had one choice of going to, so it really didn't matter to me whether or not the campus was flat, or luckily it is really, so that was kind of a nice benefit. But I was gonna be going there either way just because my degree is very specific, and definitely that was the best choice for me. So luckily the area was nice, and I did consider a couple other ones, but before I even knew where knew that I would be going there before I even visited the campus. So that just was a huge consideration for me. But I also haven't had a huge flare in a long time, so I've just been lucky in that aspect that I didn't have to think about that as much. But I definitely have in the back of my mind that that they offer a cart service here on campus, or that there's bike placement everywhere, and that if I wanted to get an electric bike or an electric scooter, I could ride on campus with that. So that was a big consideration when we were on campus, and I was looking through accommodations and stuff that they do have a cart service that you can call, be transported across campus if you need to.
Great, thank you. How did you successfully balance school and personal time?
For me, I don't really get a lot of personal time. It's really balancing school and work. And it's been very difficult for me. I can't proclaim to have the best time management. So it's definitely been difficult for me to kind of be balancing it and just trying to learn how to stay a bit later and do homework that actually I do a good job on. and just trying to focus solely on when I'm at home. Don't, sit there and watch TV, or watch TikTok or whatever. Don't lose track of them and just sit there and do homework. So that's just kind of something that personally I've been trying to focus on. But it's a very hard balance. What I've learned that is that, I tend to say yes to go work a lot, and if I'm not feeling it that day, just say no, especially when your arthritis is flaring, because you're better off to, I've taken it where I've gotten sick and I've taken an extra day off of work because I knew that if I went in, I was just going to become sick the next day because of the arthritis, and because I've done that in the past.
I've honestly had a very easy time balancing school and personal life, which has been really nice for me. I juggle a lot of different things being down here because I have school, I have my personal life, I joined a sorority, and I hold a position now. And so the best thing for me has been to have a planner, write down when everything is, what I need to get done this week. And sometimes a lot of like my personal life and my school life has to mix together. So like if I want to hang out with friends, but I have a big test coming up, I will sit there and be like, hey, do y'all want to go to the library, or do y'all want to go to the coffee shop? That way I can still hang out with those friends, build those relationships, but keep on top of my schoolwork and my things that do need to get done.
Sorry, I was just waiting for the loud construction noise to go away. Thank you. All right, so we do have a question from the chat. What was the way you wanted your parents to ask how you were feeling without asking every day? I'm assuming this is geared toward if you were younger.
I feel like asking how you're feeling is a very sensitive subject for every child with arthritis. We all get very fed up with it at some point. I know I did, and it caused a lot of strain on my relationship with my mom. And so my mom honestly just stopped asking at some point. Like she just stopped asking because she knew if I really needed something, I would come ask her, because she would rather me sit there and be in pain and not tell her than me yell at her. But if I had to go back, I think if my mom would have phrased it a little bit differently, like, hey, do you need anything from me today, or something like that, it would have been a lot better than every single day. How are you feeling? How is this feeling? Like all of that, because it just gets very repetitive. And if you're not feeling good multiple days in a row, it just keeps bringing it to the front of your mind.
I'd have to say about the same for me too. Even to this day, I know my mom's on here, so sorry, mom, but she still comes in and asks how I'm doing, and she'll ask me 2 or 3 times, and it's each time is the same one. So I mean, definitely ask once if they seem annoyed. For the parents on the Zoom today, if you kind of are getting that they seem annoyed about it, they're doing fine physically, but just need some space mentally just to sit there and kind of be there in their own kind of room or wherever they are and just kind of by themselves for a little bit. I mean, definitely if they're sitting there and just kind of, crying the whole day, maybe go in and check on them at some point. But, if they just start sitting there watching, YouTube, doing whatever in their room, and they're just trying to sit there and relax and whatever, ask them once. But if they, don't just keep going in and asking and asking and asking, because it definitely, you will get that, mean feedback that, they just want to be left alone right now.
I think one of the other big things is let your kid know that you're there for them, so they know, like, if they really need something, they can come to you. Like, know that if your child does need something, they will come to you. Like, some days they just don't want to talk about it, and it is what it is. But if they really do need something, they'll come talk to you. You don't have to ask them every single day how they're feeling.
Good points. Thanks, y'all. All right, I am gonna move into more transitions to adult rheumatology, not questions specifically about the transition itself, but things leading up to it. So, what ages did you start managing aspects of your health or care? And let's just start with prescriptions. What ages did you start managing prescriptions? So, that would be refills, self injections, managing when you take medications.
For me, the actually refilling it, I started doing when I was 18, just because of the way that our system was working through Lumicera. So it gets mailed to the house and stuff. So it was just easier before I was 18 for my mom to go on and give them a call, do the refill for me. But I was in charge of doing my shots a lot of the times. I mean, she'd give me a reminder, but like now that I'm 18 and I have to do everything myself, I'm in charge of doing my shots. So I have it on my phone and the calendar, and every 2 weeks I do Humira. So every 2 weeks I make sure that I do it. Um, I'd probably, if I were to do it again, I'd probably start out probably having, the kid sit on the call with you probably at 16 and maybe start making them at 17, because it definitely was a kind of shocking thing to start, doing it myself and kind of not knowing the whole system. But I mean, luckily it is easier for me. We just do a phone call and they ask for your birth date and name, and then, oh, what do you want to do, a refill? So that's that part was easy for me.
Prescriptions, my parents have always somewhat let me handle. Like, I'm responsible for taking them, I'm responsible for remembering that. Before I could drive, my parents would handle everything to do with refilling them, picking them up, scheduling my infusions, and then like managing when my shots get mailed to the house. Once I could drive, like my pill prescriptions, I would call them in, I would refill them. My specialty medications, such as like my Actemra, my Humira, that kind of stuff, my mom still does handle that and get it shipped to me, because my schedule's a little bit crazy and it's just easier for her to do so. But I have sat on those phone calls with her where if it came down to it and I needed to order it, I know how to.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. So another thing about managing aspects of your health or care, when did you start keeping your own records, and when did you start going to appointments by yourself?
So for me, my doctor is 2.5 hours away, so it's a fairly long car ride by myself. So I still have somebody go with me, but usually at this point, nobody goes into the doctors with me, and that started about the age of 18 that they stopped. My doctor was really good. I should say my nurse practitioner is really good with, he's a part of the camps. I met him at one of the JA camps before he was actually my nurse practitioner. So he already knew like at the age of 16 that he started asking me questions at the age of 17, preparing me for just being by myself. And then at the age of 18 saying that mom doesn't need to come in anymore. She can wait out in the lobby. Just because you are an adult now, you are treated as an adult in that aspect of life. So he was a big proprietor of that, but it was definitely hard for my mom to give up that, because, we would be sitting there and she would try and answer the questions. And it's like there was stuff that, it was stuff that I could answer at that point. I can't proclaim that I keep records of everything. I know that like I'm lucky to have my chart for both of my things, so that keeps records of everything for me. I wouldn't proclaim that would be the best at, if everything was still paper and nothing was online, I would probably lose everything. I still lose blood work slips that I'm supposed to be doing. So nowadays it's, if they have a blood work thing at wherever I'm going, I'm just going to do it there, because I would lose it as soon as I get home.
Luckily, my rheumatologist and his team has always been extremely good about preparing me for that transition. From a young age, they've always talked to me directly because I am the patient. And then at the end of my appointment, they'd be like, hey, mom, do you have any input? And so my doctor's always been really good about just talking to me. My mom still goes to my rheumatology appointments with me, but starting last summer before I left for college, so at 17, before I left for college, I started making little appointments on my own. Like I had to go get my meningitis vaccine. So I made that appointment and I went by myself to do that. And then a couple other appointments, like I started going to like little ones by myself. I just went to my first big appointment by myself this summer though. And so like that was very scary, but my rheumatology team has set me up really well where my doctor would talk to me and I would have to advocate for myself, tell him what's going wrong, tell him if I want to change prescriptions and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I'll just add a little bit of my own input because I am 24 years old. And so I've been doing appointments by myself for a while now. And I went to my last 2 pediatric rheumatology appointments by myself. My mom was in the waiting room. I went in the actual appointment. So that kind of helped with that transition. So just my little input right there. Do either of you keep a pain diary or pain journal? All right. So
I don't. I do want to state for everybody though, I am in what is it, 3 days now. I will be turning 21. So just for refs between, I was sitting there and I was thinking that people might be a little bit confused. I am turning 21, so I am a bit older than Haley in that aspect that I have been doing it for a bit longer. Going to appointments and stuff on my own. I guess it has been about 3 years now that's been, we've been working towards. I'm just going in by myself. It's just a drive down there for me. We got to go through San Francisco, and it's just a bit hard for me to just go by myself.
Yeah, same for me. We have to drive through Atlanta. And so that's just a very anxiety provoking drive for that hour and a half through a major city. So my mom still drives. It makes life easy.
Hey, there is no judgment there. I completely understand. All right, we do have a question in the chat that I would like to address. Have you noticed your condition flaring when you are more stressed? What tools have you used to try to de-stress?
I have definitely noticed when I'm more stressed out, especially when I would almost say that it's bordering, like almost an anxiety attack. My arthritis will flare up, my hand more often than not. And usually, especially with school, if I'm super stressed out, I just got to take a break from everything and go watch a YouTube video or watch a movie or something and just kind of take, an hour or 2 hour break from everything. If I'm feeling like just stressed with life in general and there's really no way to escape, I have property up in Northern California that we go up to, and I try and schedule it so I can take a weekend off and just not have anything to worry about. That doesn't always work out, and that's not really the best solution because it really seems like as soon as you get back, the stress is right there. But it's definitely managed time to where you can take a break and just sit and not think about anything for a while. That's usually how I try and deal with it, or I try and go out for like a little bit of a drive, or get something to eat with a friend or something, just to try and not think about what was stressing me out, and usually that tends to help.
I'll be honest, I get stressed out very easy because I like to put a lot on my plate and I like to do everything that I do to perfection or as close to perfection as I can get. So I get stressed out very easy and very often. And I noticed that when I do get stressed out, my body hurts more. I'm more tired. And then I don't sleep well, which progresses everything and makes everything worse. So luckily, I've found a good support system down here that'll like, hey, why don't you take a break? Why don't you conquer one thing today? Just like reminder to like make a to-do list and check it. Like the world isn't going to end if you don't get one thing done. And like, that's a hard thing for a lot of people to remember, but taking a break when you need it, talking to people when you need to, whether that's like when I have like personal life issues come up or something like that, I'll call my mom, I'll call my dad, I'll call my siblings, just like kind of de-stress, like try to bring me back down to earth when my anxiety's getting up there, because they're people that understand how I think, how I act, that kind of thing. But like if I just need to get away for a little bit, I'll go hang out with friends, go for a drive, go to dinner, that type of thing.
I'll go ahead and add that sleep is just absolutely paramount to help deal with stress. And I would agree with hanging out with peers and friends is super, super helpful. Okay, let's move on to, real quick. What is something you wish someone would have told you before transitioning to an adult rheumatologist, if that applies to you?
It doesn't really apply to me because I am in the midst of trying to get an adult rheumatologist, which right now, COVID, I was trying to in late 2019, early 2020, I was trying to transition to an adult rheumatologist, and we had a couple of people in mind. And then it hit, and I just haven't wanted to go in because I haven't wanted to risk going into a doctor's office with, all the COVID stuff. So now I'm kind of in a state of limbo that I did try and do my last pediatric rheumatologist appointment, and I'm trying to get into an adult rheumatologist. I would definitely recommend for parents out there that at the age of 18 start looking and maybe trying to go and see one. Just because I am in that weird 21 is kind of in that weird phase where you're not like you're fully an adult in the government's mind. You can still stay until about 24 on or 24/6 on your parents' insurance, and you can go to a pediatric rheumatologist. But you are of the age where you are considered an adult now, and you should be really going and seeing a regular rheumatologist. So I definitely recommend maybe 18 or 19 actually having an adult rheumatologist and starting to phase out the pediatric rheumatologist. I just haven't been able to. It hasn't lined up perfectly for me yet. So I'm just kind of in that weird phase right.
So I haven't transitioned yet, and I won't transition for about 4 more years because my pediatric rheumatologist will keep me till I'm 24 or 23, somewhere right in there. And so I'm very lucky that they keep me that long, but we've started to transition the rest of my doctors, and that's been a very eye-opening experience, especially being in pediatrics so long, because they are very gentle and caring. And like when you go and get your blood drawn, they count it down. At adult, sometimes they don't care. They're just like, stick that needle in there and get the blood out and you're on your way. So we've definitely been coddled a lot in the pediatric world, where it's been very eye-opening moving to adult, but I'm glad that I've been slowly able to do it. And so everything of mine is now adult except for my rheumatology. And I'm also lucky because my mom does work for the Arthritis Foundation in Georgia and works closely with a lot of our rheumatologists, that we've started talking to adult rheumatologists to figure out who will be a good fit for me when that time does come.
Great, y'all. Well, I have transitioned all the way. When did I last? I saw my pediatric rheumatologist last when I was 19. So it's about 5 years ago. And something that I wish somebody would have told me was just about how you need to have your records. That was something that I didn't even think of. And so my adult rheumatologist would ask me all these questions and I could not answer them. And then it would be similar to what Haley said about how they talk to you like you're an adult now. And so that was a little bit scary when I was, 19, 20, but it is what it is. It's just how it goes. We do have a few questions now in the chat. I'll start with this one. What helps you to sleep better?
I still don't sleep well. I really haven't found anything that's worked for me. We've gone to pain management. I've done meditation. I've done melatonin. I've done like anxiety medication to help me sleep at night. I just don't sleep well. It's something that I'm still working on. I've noticed if I work out a few hours before I go to bed, I am tired enough to go to sleep, but there's nothing really specific that helps me to go to sleep. That is a ongoing issue.
I've never really had a whole lot of trouble staying asleep, I should say. Definitely putting down the phone and not looking at your phone right before bed is a big one for me. I've always found right now I can put on a podcast and then it takes my mind off of thinking about stuff. I definitely tend to overthink a lot. So, being on a podcast and having that in the background, and luckily because I have Spotify, they have it where you at the end of the episode it'll just stop, so it doesn't just keep playing and playing and playing something. um, but I tend to put that on, and if it's something that I'm like interested in but not so interested in that it's going to keep my attention, or if it's something that's kind of, I guess, kind of calming to to my mind, or however you want to put it, I tend to put that on and then just try and focus on that and then not have lights on. That and kind of, I learned luckily at an early age, I need somewhere that's super dark. And granted, when I was a little kid, it was not good for me to be in the dark because, as a little kid, you're scared of the dark. But now as a, kind of more as an adult, I need my room to be pretty dark where I can fall asleep. So if I have like a light on, it's definitely harder for me to fall asleep. But when I'm in pain, I definitely do to end up staying up a lot later, and I haven't myself sort of really figured out how to, um, you definitely find a good like position. If you can fall asleep, you can, but then I've had nights where it's in both of my hips, and I just end up sitting there and playing on my phone until I'm exhausted that I do just fall asleep.
Awesome, y'all. Thank you for sharing. Um, Here's another question from the chat. When you were young, if you wanted to do something that your parents knew you would end up in a lot of pain after, did they still let you do it? And if you did, do you wish they would have set some limits so you didn't end up being in so much pain? Yes.
I think that for me, my mom wouldn't really allow me a whole lot to go out and do that stuff. But when me and my dad would go to our property up north, it was kind of, go ham. But at the end of the weekend, you still are, at the end of at the end of us being there, you still got to go to school on Monday. So it was definitely, you know, go however you want, do much as you want, but you got to pay for your consequences and you got to go to school the next week. So it was definitely up to me a lot to not go overboard. And if I did go overboard, I was told, well, you did this to yourself. You need to, at least go try and go to school. So that was a big thing for me. I mean, definitely if it was during the summer, I would just go all out and then deal with it because I didn't have school the next. But during school, I was able to restrict myself enough to know that, well, if I do this or that, I'm gonna end up paying for it for the rest of the week. And usually I was okay. Nowadays, I definitely have backed off because I can't go to work being absolutely sore and standing all day, and my coworkers to hear about how I'm in pain. So I end up trying not to go overboard, but there have been some times, and I end up just trying to work through it. It definitely sounds hard for people that are on the younger side to just work through it and work through the pain, but it does build a better. I feel like it builds a better work ethic for you if you're able to just kind of push through it and make it to work or make it to school. So that's just my experience.
Anyone that knows me knows that I am an extremely stubborn person. So my parents basically just had to let me learn the hard way. They would sit there and they'd be like, okay, is that something you want to do? And I would say yes. And my mom would remind me of the consequences. And I'd be like, okay, well, I still want to do it. And so I would do it. And then I wouldn't be able to get out of bed for 3 days. And then the next time that would come up, my mom's like, you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, no, I think I learned my lesson last time. But I was one of those kids that you just had to let me do what I wanted to do. And I had to learn the hard way that, hey, you're not going to be able to get out of bed for a week.
I've definitely seen Haley there during the conference and heard those conversations at conference many times.
Oh yeah, 3 a.m. like trips to go get ice cream. My parents like, you have to be up at 7 in the morning. And I'm like, it is what it is. I'll go get some coffee. I'll lose my voice. I'll be in pain, and it is what it is.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, y'all. We have a few questions about this next subject, but I think I'm the only one over 21, so I will just go ahead and take this one. With being on JA meds, is drinking alcohol an issue for you? It depends on the medication that I'm on. So nowadays, because the medications I'm on, I tend to really limit myself and drinking. Also, it can give me a migraine if I go too hard. But I really only do maybe one drink a month, maybe. And that's just because I have had a scare before with my liver. Not because I did anything crazy, but just with my medications, I'm just sensitive to that. And so I'm still able to have a drink and go out and be social with my friends. But it is something that I do have in the back of my mind, like, okay, maybe let's take it slow. And, because the medications oftentimes do metabolize through your liver, I believe. And so that can be really, really difficult on your body, especially as you get older. Even though I'm a young adult, my body doesn't always function that way. So alcohol is in that same vein. Shane, you can also answer.
Yeah, I can attest to this one a little bit. At the age of 18, I did go up to my practitioner and ask him, I did ask, I didn't explicitly say it, but, I'm like, if I do decide to drink alcohol, is it a safe thing for me to do? And that's definitely up to the doctor, for the parents out there. If your kid does want to, let's say at 18, does want to, and you're open to it, try alcohol, you definitely want to discuss it with the nurse practitioner, because I was on methotrexate and Enbrel for a while, and that was one of those things where he said, yeah, but he told me, yeah, you can drink, but do not go overboard, because then we definitely would have to do labs and stuff afterwards. I don't think that at the moment I have to be as worried about it, but because of other health issues that I have to do with my stomach, I don't drink a whole lot, just because it does mess with your digestive system. So I have, I will drink a little bit, but and I'm turning 21 in a couple of days, and I'll go a little bit overboard, but I will definitely restrict myself from going so much that I will end up, puking or something, because that's, for one, nothing that I want to do, but also I have the health in the back of my mind. I am going, Chico's known as a party school, but, and everybody keeps saying that, but for me, I'm not going there for the drinking and the partying. I'm going there for an education. That might be, something that comes up, for friends that I have, and if they want to go to a party, good for them, but I can't afford to, risk my health and go to, party and go overboard and then end up needing to, change my medication or something because I screwed up in that aspect.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We have just a couple of minutes left, so let's go. Oh, another question. Let's go ahead and do this one to end with. How hard was it to find a job that was willing to work with you on accommodations? I can give a quick answer to this one too. I currently teach at a public school in Texas. I teach music pre-K through 6, so 8 classes every day. In regards to accommodations, really it's kind of just a discussion between you and your supervisor, at least in my experience. Even when I was working in college, it was the same thing. A lot of times I didn't even have to bring in paperwork because my employers were awesome. And they said, we trust you. You can do this job and you can do it in whichever ways you need to do it. So sometimes for me, when I'm teaching, that means I'm not sitting on the floor with the kids playing the games, I'm sitting in a chair. Or if I'm having a hard time with my hands, I'm not using the manipulatives, but I have a rock star student who's doing it for me. So things like that, if anyone else would like to share.
When I was first hired onto my current job, I did the interview and then waited to hear until I was hired to say something. Just because if you bring something up, it definitely can give them a prejudice towards not wanting to hire you just because it is a bit more difficult. I definitely, though, when I do say it, I make it clear that I'm going to do my best to be there and that you know, unless it's one of those things where I don't feel to the point where I can't be there physically, or if I need to take a mental day and they're asking me to come in, I am going to work towards not saying no and just not going in. But I do get people at the moment that we have bar stools that we can sit on, and I tend to stand there for a while at the first part of my shift. And then once my feet start to hurt, I will end up sitting on the stool until I see a customer walk up. And then I'll walk to the cash register and start ringing them up. And I do have coworkers that I've heard that are talking behind my back and saying that, it's not right that I can do that and this and that. And the people have told me this, I kind of put it down because do have a disability, and if they want to complain about it, then they can take it up with HR because that's something that I have a right to. And if we had the chairs and I couldn't use them, that would be something that they can take up with a lawyer. That's against the Disabilities Act, and that's something that for me is a big thing. That if somebody wants to give you flack for that, they need to kind of deal with that themselves, because that's something that is in their own mind, that they need to figure out that you have a disability. Yeah, it's not visible to other people. It still affects me, and it's what I determined to do. So it definitely, I say, that was something when I first got hired that I was debating on time that I should tell them. And my very first job, and I only had it for a couple of months, I actually told them in the interview. They asked if I had any adversity, and I used my arthritis to it, and I was hired on the spot. My second job that I'm currently at and have been at for a year and a half, almost 2 years. I was hired on this and then ended up telling them after said that I was hired, said that, we're going to set up something. And I just did an interview since I'm moving up to Chico. I did an interview with the same store, but at a different location, in a different department. I did an interview and until he said, okay, we're going to hire you. And then I said, okay, well, I do have arthritis. I do want to let you know. And they were both the managers that I got hired by are perfectly fine with it, and they're willing to work with me just as long as I communicate. And that's the biggest thing for anybody in any situation, whether it's school, work, personal life, relationships, whatever. You do need to communicate what is going on and how you're feeling, because if you don't, you're gonna lose, a whole bunch.
Yeah, I've had the same job for the past 3 years. I've just moved up into higher positions as I've gone up. But my boss was one of my coaches growing up. So my boss knew all of my limits and abilities before I even got hired on with the job. And I have a very good relationship with her. So when I do need a day off, I can communicate that to her. Or if I need my shift cut shorter, if I need a longer break, I'm able to talk to her about that. like Shane said, communication is just really one of the biggest things you can do in any relationship. Communicate your needs, communicate all of that, and typically things will go a lot easier if you do practice those communication skills and build those relationships.
And kind of a last thing for the parents, I don't know if we have any new attendees in the audience right now, but even second, third year people, it's definitely when I started coming to the conferences, I was not this outgoing. I wouldn't have even on Zoom, I wouldn't have come on and spoke in front of people. So the conference was a key part. The conference, JA days in your local area, and camp. Whether or not I know all over the United States the camps are different, but I had a youth camp and then I had a teen retreat, and all of those things combined together were probably what made the person I'm today. When people ask me, I'm sorry about my arthritis, say sorry to me about having arthritis, I usually tell them don't be, because I wouldn't be here where I am today without my arthritis, and wouldn't know the people I know without my arthritis. So I think once, as parents, I do want you to know, once your kid is able to acknowledge that they have arthritis and feel good about it, and acknowledge that this isn't so much burden, just something you have to deal with, and it actually can, in a lot of circumstances, advance you above other people, then your kid will be very successful with their life, because I feel like looking forward, I have a brighter future than I would have as a 10-year-old.
I definitely agree with that. Like, if you can frame your arthritis in as positive of a mindset as you can, your life will go a lot easier. Like, sure, you're going to have those days where, man, this really sucks. But my parents were always really good at reframing it. Like, look at the friends you wouldn't have. Look at like the leadership opportunities you wouldn't have gotten. Like, the person I've grown into because of my arthritis, I've met so many people and I've had so many opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have arthritis. Like, I probably wouldn't have even joined the sorority that I'm in if I didn't have arthritis, because I'm an AOPI down here and our philanthropy is juvenile arthritis. And that was like a main reason that I joined. And my best friends down here came from that. Like, if you can frame your arthritis in a positive mindset and teach your kids to do that, then it will be a much better experience for everyone involved.
Awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for serving on this panel today. I think that was our last question, so I think we're ready for some closing remarks.
Yes, and hi, I'm Carrie Ferrero. I'm a JA mom, and I wanted to thank Emma, Haley, and Shane for being with us today at the JA virtual conference. It means a lot to us, and thank you for all of our attendees and for my co-host, Faith, for joining us for our breakout session today. Please take a moment to provide feedback on your session by completing the conference survey in the app. The guide it'll help us guide future programming. And don't forget, the next round of live breakout sessions starts at 5:30 Eastern. Check out the conference apps for those details. Be sure to check the conference app for Arthritis Foundation resources, and I encourage you to take part in the JA Insights today. Access the app in the link for kids under 18. And thank you all.